So a few days ago, we got some bad news. We lost quite a few iconic figures, in pop culture. But this is going to be about the immortal Hulk Hogan. I totally understand how there's sort of a split vibe for Hogan's passing away. Some people obviously are saddened by it. He was a big figure for those of us growing up in the 80s. But at the same token, as years progress, we all know Hogan didn't do the best job in maybe protecting his legacy. I never got caught up in his whole political affiliation. It just doesn't matter. Some of your favorite pop culture figures are aligned to groups that you'd be surprised. So if you're on the left and you're a Democrat, you'll be surprised how many people you think are Democrats are really Republicans. It doesn't matter. And I don't get caught up in that because to me, it's a waste of time. But Hogan caught a bad rap for his Trump support. And that's not the lasting memory for me of Hulk Hogan. And we all know his past dealings with using a racial slur and not taking full ownership in his apology. This is not about tainting his legacy. But I was a little saddened by it. Was I, Kobe Bryant, emotional when I got the news? No. But it bothered me. And as a child of the 80s, I still own the original Nintendo NES. And I still own some of my WWF wrestling figures. And I was able to pull this guy out. Now, over the years, I kind of modified him to look more current, more of like the Hogan of the early 2000s when he went back to WWE. But, I kept this and I got about 30 others because that's how important Hogan and Mr. T and Knight Rider and every sitcom and every iconic figure, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Prince, every iconic figure of the 80s I hold near and dear to my heart. And it's tough when you get news like that. And of course we know death happens every day, but it just seems like everyone from that particular decade have dropped like flies. Sometimes younger than expected, other times many of them passed away just because of old age. But Hogan was super important to a lot of us. I'm not ashamed to admit this. When I was younger and Hulkamania was everything to most of us, I remember WrestleMania 6 in 1990, Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. And I remember shedding a tear when the Warrior beat him. That's how important Hogan was, that you would sit there and actually cry when you saw him lose or saw him getting attacked by, Bobby Heenan's family or, Andre the Giant when he ripped his chain off on the Piper's Pit. Some of you guys may not remember that. That's going back into the vault. But that's how important of an iconic figure he was to many of us growing up into the whole wrestling thing. Hogan was everything. And again, this is not giving him a pass for his shenanigans in the latter stages of his life or things that happen within the wrestling world with him, just not willing to lose and just the little politics that he was involved in. I don't care enough about that because I'm not a wrestler. And many fans shouldn't care about that. The Hogan's hogged the spotlight for a little too long. Absolutely. Was he reluctant to do certain things that would have probably been for the benefit of the company? Sure. But no one can forget, his impact. After years and years of Hulkamania and saying your prayers and taking your vitamins and all that, mushy gushy, stuff that a lot of us grew up on, it was a thrill to see him finally accept change and get rid of the whole red and yellow and just into the dark side. That was a great feeling for a wrestling fan, because we got tired of Hogan's, good guy act. He was getting booed out the arenas in the early 90s. But it was a sad day when the news struck. I have a couple friends who, were, huge Hulkamania fans. Huge. And, I'm sure they were quite emotional with the news. Again, 71 is young. And we know he's had a lot of health issues. There was rumors a couple months ago that he was nearing the end, and then they quickly debunked it, and then all of a sudden, gone. Just like that. And again, 71 isn't that old. I mean, I don't know. Maybe my brain is just not accepting what old means. But, I've had relatives reach their 90s. So when you think 71, just like, some of us have parents in their 70s. And it's like, wow, time is really flying. But sad loss for those of us who followed Hogan from day one. Sad loss to just the whole entertainment industry in general. Again, a lot of you guys who might be young just don't know the impact Hogan had. He had a chokehold on the entertainment world. Whether you enjoyed him as a wrestler or just an iconic figure in general, Hogan was everything. And I don't think there'll be another sports entertainer to have a chokehold on the entertainment world. A lot of people wanted to cross over into wrestling because of Hogan. Hogan was on late night television shows and movies and making cameo appearances here and there. And I don't think we'll have another one like that. Many people will say John Cena became the modern day Hogan just based on popularity. But John Cena's been in the business 25 years and he's about to pretty much be done. So there's really no other wrestler left, in my opinion, that will, take the world by storm the way Hogan did. And I just wanted to, like I said, just because I grew up watching him and being a Hulkamaniac for a few years before it got old to me, I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge it because that one was crushing. And again, we're just losing a lot of figures over the years. No one has to tell me about life and people, reaching their expiration date. I'm well aware. But it's just like you never expect it to be certain people. We really think certain people are immortal. So RIP to Hogan, despite all the ugliness that he's encountered these last few years, that kind of put a stain on his name. He'll still be remembered to many of us as an iconic figure and somebody who just, really shaped and molded a lot of our childhoods.